Lost media and the mysteries attached to them have always fascinated me, and I love sharing strange ones that no one ever talks about. This is the r/tip-of-my-tongue series, where we dive into unidentified pieces of media from people's memories. Let's get right into it. Scary animated TV short for children. This memory has haunted user Scenery of Doomsday for years, and are desperate to find it. They think it aired on Playhouse Disney in around 2005 or 6, but are from Italy, so there's a chance it was European. They wrote, "It's drawn in a very soft, pastel-like style. The characters are a bit round, and the dominant color is light blue. All characters are human. The focus of the plot is on this small child, not sure if it's a boy or girl, who has a nightmare out of guilt. I think because they're not doing something they should be doing, or something like that. In the dream, you first see the child on their father's bike, sitting behind him, and the father is pedaling, but he has no facial features. Like his face is just a blank circle of skin. A swarm of bats flies in front of them as a transition, and the child gets home terrified, and sees their mother washing the dishes in the kitchen facing away from the screen. It cuts to the child, seemingly relieved, and then back to the mother, who turns around, and she too has no face. I have no idea what this is, and at this point I'm starting to think I dreamt it, but I've been looking for it since elementary school, with no success. I tried using all the keywords I could, but nothing. I have such a vivid memory of seeing this on TV at night. I couldn't have made it up. Can anyone help me, please? Thank you in advance." Media that contains anyone faceless is pretty unnerving, and I can imagine seeing it as a child would be even more so. User ATJB said there was an episode of Round the Twist where everyone was replaced with blank faces, but the closest I could find is when this kid gets cursed with a small mouth or something. Regardless, OP is sure it was a cartoon, so it couldn't be this. Okay Good 455 asked if it was an episode of Nightmare Ned, which quite literally is about a boy who has surreal nightmares about his problems, with some surrounding guilt. Although they'd never heard of it, and it didn't get an Italian release, I wanted to be completely sure that Nightmare Ned never had any weird faceless moments. I skimmed through every episode, and unless I somehow missed it, it wasn't there. It must be something else, and I do believe it's real, because I found this post from a different Reddit account 4 years before this one. This user is from the US, so it isn't the same person. Their post is titled, "Dishwashing Mom with No Face." They remembered it being a kids' movie or cartoon, but said, "For all I know, it could have been a horror film, or a particularly upsetting commercial." They give the same recap. It's a dream sequence. The protagonist goes into the kitchen, the mom is shown washing dishes. All you can hear is the sound of the running water, and the squeak of the dishes. She doesn't speak. She turns around, and it turns out she has no face. A plausible suggestion was when Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy has a nightmare, and after his mom is at the kitchen sink, it's revealed she has Johnny's face. It made them consider this being the answer, or an homage to the actual scene. But it doesn't play out the same way that the other poster recalled. There's no bike ride or bat transition. One of you watching has to remember this, right? I'm just hoping someone can place it, or more importantly find it, because there's a surprising amount of lost media from Playhouse Disney. 2000s rock song. On August 2nd, 2019, user Arctic Moon 8 turned to the subreddit with a clip of a song. Shazam won't give you the answer, and YouTube won't copyright it. They heard it in a promo for a TV information program, but forgot the specific title and only had the recording. Let's assume this isn't a repeat of the EKT incident. Immediately, the song sounded extremely familiar to me, but I think it's just generally reminding me of songs from similar genres. These comments are honestly confusing because people were comparing the artists to the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Blink-182. The band brought up the most was Tool, and while I get where they're coming from, it doesn't legitimately sound like them. But coincidentally, as this person pointed out, this was posted the day Tool finally got on Spotify. I found it funny that this Soundgarden comment got downvoted because despite the fact it isn't Soundgarden, I think it sounds closer to them than Tool. Multiple users thought it could be a Christian rock band, and maybe that'd be a good place to start looking. Cheese Orbiter guessed it never had a label and was a project from one of the show producers. But the mystery deepens, because OP found a man from Germany who was looking for it as well, except his sample was from a different source, and is of the intro. Arctic Moon 8 is from Sweden, so it may be a European band. The song was never identified, and the post has faded into complete obscurity. I wanted to bring attention to it, hoping someone can identify the tune. Disturbing film about a guy SAing a mannequin/puppet. Like the title says, this one sure is disturbing. User CrackSmoker3 watched Rabbits by David Lynch.
It is 11:15 p.m. It is dark outside.
And it awoke a memory from within them, saying both have a similar tone. They believe it was a fall or winter night in 2019 when they saw it. After walking home from being out with friends, they had to wait inside a building at the bus station, because the buses were delayed due to heavy rain. They recounted, there was a TV on the wall directly in front of me that was playing a video about some kids playing lacrosse or something. I wasn't paying attention until I noticed it had switched to one of the creepiest videos I've seen in my life. The video had this awful, eerie, slow piano music. The notes sounded disjointed, like the song had every third note wrong, clearly intent on disturbing the viewer. There were 3 characters: the faceless man, the mannequin, and the puppet. The movie was long. I watched it for at least 30 minutes minimum. It would swap from scenes of the 3 of them hanging out, going about daily business like eating breakfast or reading books, to more disturbing things. The mannequin had a face and was a man. The puppet seemed to be a girl. The faceless man, the only real person who wore a mask to hide his face, would sometimes touch the puppet girl and make the mannequin watch. The piano music would become more disjointed during the touching, and the faceless man went out of his way to draw it out as long as possible. This film has been occupying my mind since I remembered it, and I cannot figure out what the hell I saw that night. Also, let me clarify. When I say puppet, I don't mean like a Muppet or anything with a controlling mechanism. It was more like a human-shaped doll. If you've ever seen those photos from 2000's internet of guys stitching their own love dolls, it was more in line with that. The faceless man never talks. Neither do the puppet or mannequin. While I saw the movie in 2019, I have no clue when it released. The style and camera quality make me think late 90s. I'll answer any questions as soon as possible if people are interested in helping me find this. Well, we're keeping up a faceless theme in this video for some reason. Searching puppet touching didn't yield any helpful results, and they don't think there were any commercials that played during it. They added an edit, saying they were gonna draw what the characters looked like, hoping it could strike someone else's memory. Cracksmoker followed through with this, and the drawing made it even more unsettling to me because the puppet/doll's eyes are sewn shut. The man had a mask made out of silky material and might have had eye holes. The mannequin was an old man with a cigar. OP made an update post a little over a week later. They added a few details, like confirming the man is the only real person they saw, and if he's around 6 feet, the mannequin would be about 5 feet, and the puppet 4. It wasn't a typical horror movie. They described it as, if a friend of mine said, hey, let's go see a horror film, and took me to this, I would reconsider my friendship with them. And to clarify, it wasn't animated or stop motion. This was live action. The doll and mannequin never moved without the man visibly moving them. User Butterfly Deflect thought it sounded like the 2018 film Possum, but it was significantly lower budget than this, and isn't it. Possibly in Michigan has a very odd vibe.
She put her poodle one time in a microwave oven to eat it? Yeah.
And the antagonist, Arthur, looks like some type of puppet mannequin thing. This short film's plot isn't anything like what was described though, and isn't it either. A few other ideas were love object, marionette, and pin. Unfortunately, none hit the mark. I think this is the kind of thing that suggestions are pointless because if it's found, it'd be incredibly obvious that it was it. When asked about other elements, OP said it took place in an artificial-looking house, and the furniture was scaled down to the size of the puppet and mannequin. The closest suggestion for camera quality is Adult Swim's short Too Many Cooks. There is a big elephant in the room, as Glass Dollhouse pointed out. Playing this in a public building is incredibly strange, and would lead to wondering if this was made up. Some blatantly asked if it was a creepypasta, and they said no. The theory that makes the most sense to them is it being aired on public access. Obviously, they'd try to keep up the jig, but assuming this isn't fabricated, my morbid curiosity wants this freaky thing to be found. Late 90s or early 2000s PSA about internet gambling. Go to your box. Raoul315 started their post with, "This was a public service announcement about internet gambling. It might have aired across multiple states. I know that in Michigan, it was sponsored by the Michigan Department of Community Health. I've scoured the internet and found many people asking about this PSA, but no video. It aired in the late 90s or early 2000s, and had a family who was homeless because their son had gambled tens of thousands online. They're sitting in what looks a lot like a dump, with cardboard boxes strewn about everywhere. A mom and dad are talking about how they lost their home, car, and savings, all because their son gambled on the internet. When the son says, 'I told you I was sorry,' the dad replies, 'Go to your box.' The humorous nature of the line, 'Go to your box,' turned the commercial into a running joke amongst OP's family, and they'd love to see it again. Roughly 11 years later, and they have not been able to see it again, as the post has sat unsolved. A lot of the comments are people coming across the post after trying to find the ad. This user from Southeast Michigan said, "It's still a running joke with my friends too. I've searched and searched for it. No luck. It's probably on someone's VHS tapes rotting away." And Pixie Blues could have sworn it was on YouTube at some point. OP resorted to emailing the Michigan Department of Community Health and Michigan Association of Broadcasters, but never got a response. Someone even did a FOIA request and heard nothing back. The most promising thing is this user went to school with the kid who played the son, and thinks his name was Billy. This fabled PSA has been brought up on Twitter, various forums, TV tropes, and this article that once and for all confirms its existence, with an exact transcript provided. It began airing in February 2000. It details, IGN obtained videotapes of the 30-second ads. However, a request to air them online was denied. I have no idea why they're treating this commercial as a top secret artifact. It's worth mentioning that this guy who brought it up has his location listed as Pennsylvania, meaning he either grew up in Michigan or it aired in other states. I'm sure there's some way for this to resurface. We just have to figure out how. Raoul315 is still active on their account, by the way, so if we find it, they'll finally be able to see the commercial again. Newgrounds animation, mid-2000s. Creepy Flash story I watched as a kid. I swear this isn't a creepypasta. When I was far too young to be on Newgrounds, I'd watch a whole bunch of Flash videos, because I wanted to be an animator and liked spooky shit in general. but one I saw gave me nightmares, and I've always wanted to go back and see how bad it actually was, but I can't find it anywhere. I have no title or anything, but it was an animation about a gang, I think. Someone makes a gang mad and they come after him. Something like that. I was too young to understand what was going on. This could have been anywhere from 2005 to 2009. Sorry I can't be more helpful with that. The scene I remember scaring me so bad is somebody comes to check on the guy/girl after they had been confronted at some point earlier, but finds them covered in blood in what I think was a bath. Or bed. Either way, in my recollection, they were lying face up with their arms out to their sides. It cut to this as a reveal, and seeing that scared me shitless, even though it was just animation. It cuts to the other person's reaction, which is quiet horror. I think that was the end. Either that or I noped out. It freaked me out so bad. Does anyone remember what the hell this was? I'd bet nearly all of us who grew up on the internet have a story similar to this. Accidentally feasting your eyes upon something that terrified you. Based on their recount, I can understand why it would scare them. It was more cartoonish rather than a realistic art style, and they compared it to The Composer, another Newgrounds animation. Multiple people asked if it was salad fingers. If you post about any video you saw on the internet, without fail, you'll receive a salad finger suggestion. It reminded Copper Cash of the point-and-click game called The Ugly, which has reveals where the main character's parents are mortally injured. This one really is pretty fucked up. While a good guess, and would have petrified OP as a child, it wasn't the answer. An animation made for Immortal Technique's Dance with the Devil was brought up, considering the theme of a gang. OP replied, "Holy crap, I see where you're coming from." For some reason, this feels very similar, albeit much better animated than Newgrounds' typical Flash, of course. Similar reaction shots. Very powerful and tragic song. I had forgotten all about this. Not the one, but thank you for sharing. In another comment they said, "I don't remember there being much Newgrounds typical violence until that very end part I mentioned, but I'm likely wrong there. I saw a lot of messed up or ultra-violent stuff on NG, but this one was different. It stuck in my mind for being chilling, at least to my kid self." It could be like finding a needle in a haystack, but I think if someone else remembers it, there is a chance of it being dug up. Movie, 80s horror. Over 30 years later, it haunts me to this day. Want to solve a decades-long mystery? Tangled Apart saw this movie between 7 and 9 years old, so around 1987 to 89. I was home seemingly by myself, but I'm sure my parents were around there somewhere. It must have been a Saturday or Sunday, because it had that vibe you get when it's the middle of an afternoon and some random movie is on channel 33 or 39. My wife recommended I do this immediately. I've been in existential pain over it for all these years. I've Googled. I've written/posted in other subs and groups. I've asked friend after group of strangers I'm meeting for the first time. I even remember asking the folks from Ain't It Cool News from way back in the day about it. Nobody has any idea what the name of this movie was or if it ever even existed. All I know is it terrified me. Traumatically. I mean, it's over 30 years later and it still F's me up. Thing is, I only have 2 memories of 2 scenes from this movie. The first memory is of a teenage girl, a light-skinned girl. She's walking in a park. There's Spanish moss. It's kinda gray out, natural lighting, and there are other people around. She starts walking past what looks like a stone castle. The camera angle is in front of her, but suddenly she stops, looks up, and a brick is thrown down at her straight into the camera's POV. And the next shot is a close-up of her, dead, with the side of her head bleeding out with the brick next to it. The second memory takes place in what is either a dorm room or a hotel room. Somebody opens the door, and what they discover is a teenage boy with bed sheets jammed all the way down his throat. He's dead, obviously, and the room has a kind of yellowish-brown hue, like aged film a bit. And that's it. That's all I remember. But these memories are so vivid, I was affected so greatly, and I've carried them with me all these years. I still get queasy when I think about them. I hope someone here can help me. It truly is the greatest mystery of my life. Searching for years on end for a piece of media that's so obscure can feel agonizing at times, and I've become invested in seeing this get solved. They were asked if it was a slasher, but it didn't feel like a masked killer type slasher film. More so like someone was getting revenge on their peers while on vacation or on campus itself. OP wondered if the castle could have been a college building, and the Spanish moss might have been part of a park. It isn't Happy Birthday to Me from 1981, however, the film gradient is spot on. User Indigo Shift wanted to know if the actors were British, since they remember awful British horror movies that sounded similar to the mysterious film, especially the castle. It was so long ago that they can't say for sure that they weren't British, and this could be a search idea. OP has made 2 posts on Tip of My Tongue, and while their most recent one received significantly more attention, no one has identified it. Suggestions included The Redeemer, Son of Satan, The Dorm That Dripped Blood, Student Bodies, along with so many others. It'd take forever to name even half of the proposals, and none were it. The description made user Mystery Radish think it was a giallo film, which are typically mystery horror featuring unique and gruesome deaths, with an unknown killer who's revealed at the end. To me, this sounds more likely than being British, but there's no way to know. In August of 2024, Toothy Cow came across a 1988 trailer for Bad Dreams, which was promising because it shows a dead girl laying down from the perspective of a tall building. It turned out the building shot was someone who fell, and not from getting hit with a brick from above. OP added, "This search has become a bad dream though." On their post about it on the horror sub, user Foreign Time commented, "Maybe cross-post this to a Lost Media subreddit. Those people can find anything." Lost Media YouTube channel, so close enough. If any of you can solve this over 30-year-long mystery, please do so. 80s obscure media can be extremely difficult to pinpoint. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was about time for a new entry in this series. I'm actually going to start doing a version of these where I solve the mysteries, and I already have a few posts cooking, so be on the lookout for that, and thank you.